Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. It's not just a news story. It's not a research paper summary.
No, it feels much more significant than that.
It really does. It's like we're reading the last will and testament of a figure who, I would argue, did more to dissolve that barrier between us and them.
The human and animal line.
Exactly. More than any other single individual in the last century. We are talking about Kanzi.
It's still so strange to talk about him in the past tense. I mean, for decades, Kanzi was just this constant presence in primatology, a living question mark.
Yeah.
Just challenging every single assumption we thought we had about language, about cognition.
I think for a lot of us, the news really hit harder than you'd expect. He passed away just under a year ago, March 18th, 2025. He was 44. And when you read the accounts from the Ape Cognition and Conservation Initiative in Des Moines, it all sounds so quiet.
It was, by all reports, a very peaceful end. It wasn't some long, drawn-out decline, which is, a small mercy.
No.
He had a totally normal morning, ate his breakfast, played with his great-nephew,
Teco.
groomed with the others, and then he was gone. The vets think it was heart failure.
Which is pretty common for great apes at that age, unfortunately.
It is. But the reaction, the global reaction, it wasn't what you see for an animal. This wasn't just local zoo animal passes away.
No, not at all. This was treated like scientific celebrity dies. He was known as the genius bonobo, but that label always felt a little reductive to me.
Oh, I agree.
It sounds like a circus trick.
Yeah.
Come see the genius bonobo do math.
Yeah.
But what he actually represented was so much more fundamental.
Genius is such a loaded word. You're right. It implies he was some kind of freak of nature, an outlier.
A fluke.
A total fluke. But the terrifying and sort of wonderful implication of Kanzi's life is that maybe he wasn't a fluke. Maybe he was just a bonobo who was given a very specific set of circumstances.
And those circumstances unlocked a potential that might just be dormant in his whole species.
Exactly.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're not just here to say R.I.P. Kanzi.
Yeah.
We want to unpack the research, from the very beginning with Sue Savage-Rumbaugh all the way up to that brand new Johns Hopkins study.
One that came out last year, yeah.
We need to understand why this one ape forced us to literally rewrite the textbooks.
And we really did have to rewrite them. I mean, we used to have this very neat, very arrogant checklist of what makes humans special.
Right.
Humans use language, animals don't. Humans use complex tools, animals don't. Humans understand that other people have minds. Animals don't.
And Kanzi just took a big red marker to that entire list.
He obliterated it.
So let's get into the weeds here. I think we have to start with the origin story, which is it's a classic case of scientific serendipity. He wasn't even supposed to be the subject.
Oh, not at all. He was basically the nuisance in the room. This is back in 1980 at the Yerkes Field Station.
Right, at Emory.
Exactly. And the researchers, led by the great Sue Savage-Rumbaugh, they were all in on Kanzi's adoptive mother, Matata.
And Matata was wild-born, which is a huge deal here.
It's the crucial detail. Matata had spent her early years in the rainforest. By the time she got to the lab, her brain was, that plasticity was mostly gone.
Her learning framework was pretty much set.
It was set. And they were trying to teach her to use a lexigram.
And we should probably paint a picture of what that is.
Yeah.
Because it's not like an iPad with a picture of a banana on it.
No, not at all. It's a board, a keyboard, with hundreds of keys. And each key has a symbol, but the symbols they're abstract, geometric shapes.
Totally arbitrary.
Completely. The symbol for apple might be a red square or a blue triangle. It looks nothing like an apple.
Which is a huge cognitive leap to make. I mean, you have to understand that this random shape means this physical object purely through social convention.
And Matata just could not bridge that gap. The researchers were using standard, behaviorist conditioning.
The old B.F. Skinner method.
Yep. Press the key, get a treat. Touch the symbol, get a tickle. It's very transactional. You drill, you repeat, you reward.
It's how you teach a dog to sit. It feels, mechanical for something like language.
It is mechanical, and Matata hated it. She was unmotivated. She couldn't retain the symbols. Her progress was just going nowhere fast.
But while all this is happening, while Matata's failing these drills, Kanzi is just there.
He's just in the room, literally hanging off her back sometimes.
Or running around playing with the researcher's shoelaces.
Totally. He was an infant. To the scientists, he was just background noise. They weren't trying to teach him. They figured he was too young or, he just wasn't the target.
So he's just soaking all this in. He's watching these hours and hours of failed lessons, hearing them say apple, seeing them point to the symbol, watching his mom get it wrong.
And then the big moment.
Yeah.
Matata is taken away, I think, for breeding or a transfer, and Kanzi is left alone with this keyboard.
And what happens?
He walks right up to the board, looks at the researchers, and just starts using it.
Not just mashing buttons randomly.
No. Using them correctly. He'd press apple, then look around for an apple. He'd press chase, and then try to start a game of chase. He had learned the entire vocabulary.
That's incredible. It's like the Helen Keller at the water pump moment for primatology.
Right.
Because nobody taught him.
That's the paradigm shift. He learned through observation, through immersion.
The same way a human child learns.
Exactly the same way. You don't sit a 6-month-old down with flashcards and give him a cookie for saying mama. You just talk around them. They absorb the patterns. They link the sounds to the meaning.
It almost suggests that the old behaviors model, the drilling, was actually getting in the way.
It's preventing the learning.
Right. By trying to force it, they were bypassing the natural social way that language is supposed to be acquired. Kanzi learned because he was curious, not because he wanted a food pellet.
It proved that the cognitive machinery for language, or at least a prototype of it, it exists in bonobos, but it needs a certain social environment to switch on. It needs a culture of language.
But once Kanzi broke that dam, the floodgates just opened.
Oh, they did.
Let's talk about the depth of that flood, because the skeptics will always say, okay, fine, he learned to ask for food with some buttons, but the data shows it went so much further than that.
Way beyond. I mean, over his lifetime, Kanzi mastered 348 symbols on that lexigram.
348.
That's his expressive vocabulary. But his receptive vocabulary, what he could understand when you just spoke to him in English, was estimated at around 3,000 words.
3,000. That's the functional vocabulary of a human adult in daily conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to push on this a little, because the ghost of Clever Hans is always haunting this kind of research.
Always.
For anyone who doesn't know, Clever Hans was a horse back in the day who could supposedly do math. His trainer would ask, what's 2 + 2? And he'd tap his hoof 4 times.
Turned out he was just watching the tiny unconscious changes in his trainer's body language. He'd stop when the trainer relaxed.
Exactly. So how did the researchers with Kanzi make sure he wasn't just, reading their body language?
They were acutely aware of this. They knew if they even glanced at the apple key while asking for an apple, Kanzi might just follow their eyes. So they designed what they called the headphones test.
Okay, this is the gold standard.
It was. They put these heavy noise-canceling headphones over Kanzi's ears. He's sitting in front of the lexigram, and the researcher speaking the words is in another room or behind a one-way mirror.
So Kanzi is totally isolated. He just hears a voice in his ear say, vacuum, or pine cone, or whatever. There's no face to read, no finger pointing anywhere.
And he pointed to the symbols. His success rate was, it was statistically undeniable. He wasn't guessing. He was processing the sounds of the English word, pulling the meaning from his memory, and then mapping it to that abstract shape on the board.
So that's it. That kills the Clever Hans argument. You can't read body language through a pair of Bose headphones.
It proves that a bonobo's brain, their auditorial processing center, can actually handle the specific frequencies and categories of human speech. That's a hardware capability we just didn't think they had.
But, words are just the bricks. Language is the whole building. It's about syntax. It's grammar.
Right.
The classic example, the dog bit the man versus the man bit the dog. Same words, totally different meaning because of the order. Did Kanzi get that?
And this is really the great battlefield of modern linguistics. You have Chomsky and others who argued for decades that complex syntax, what they call recursion, is uniquely human.
So they had to test it.
They tested it with novel sentences, commands he had absolutely never heard before.
The microwave example is the one that always gets me because it requires him to process a conditional state.
It does. So the setup is this. Kanzi's in a room. There's a carrot sitting right there on a tray, easy to grab.
Okay.
But across the room, there's a microwave oven. And inside the microwave, there's another carrot.
So if he's just responding to keywords, he hears carrot, he might just grab the easy one, the one right in front of him.
Exactly. A simple associative brain takes the path of least resistance. But the researcher said, quote, go get the carrot that's in the microwave.
A specific qualifying instruction.
And Kanzi walked right past the carrot on the tray, went across the room, opened the microwave, and took out that specific carrot.
Wow. So he understood the phrase in the microwave as something that modified carrot. He wasn't just hearing 2 separate words, he was building a mental structure.
That is syntax. It might not be Shakespeare, but it's the functional processing of sentence structure to determine a specific meaning. And they did this with hundreds of sentences. Put the soap on the ball. Take the pine needles outdoors.
And he had to understand the relationships between the things, not just the things themselves.
There was another one that's even crazier where they compared him to a 2-year-old human child, Alia, the monster test.
Right. The command was feed your balsam tomato.
Which is a nonsense sentence. I mean, it's just absurd. Balls don't eat tomatoes.
Right.
And when they gave this command to Alia, the human toddler, she just froze. She didn't know what to do because the sentence didn't map onto reality as she knew it.
She was stuck in the logic of it.
She was, but Kanzi wasn't. He picked up the spongy little Halloween pumpkin toy he had. That was his ball. And he took a piece of tomato and pressed it against the pumpkin's face. He fed it.
That shows such incredible flexibility. He understood the structure of the request action. Feed, subject, ball, object, tomato. Even if the meaning was totally bizarre, he was willing to play along.
It suggests an ability to decouple language from strict reality, which is a precursor to imagination, to storytelling, and frankly, to lying.
Right.
If you can say things that aren't literally true, you're starting to master language.
And didn't he also invent his own terms? The anecdote about the movie Quest for Fire suggests he could combine concepts.
Yes, what linguists call productivity. Kanzi loved the movie Quest for Fire.
Which, can we just pause on how meta that is? An ape, who would later learn to make stone tools, is watching a movie about early humans discovering fire.
It's unbelievable, but he wanted to watch it. The problem was the researchers hadn't programmed a Quest for Fire button on his keyboard.
So what did he do?
He improvised. He pressed the symbol for fire, and then he pressed the symbol for TV.
Fire TV. He made a compound noun.
He did the same thing for a duck. He didn't have a word for duck, so he pressed water and then bird.
Water bird. That's a very logical way to construct a word.
It is. It shows he understood that you can combine symbols to create a new emergent meaning that neither one has on its own. That's the core of human language. We take a finite set of sounds and combine them into infinite meanings. Kanzi was right there, scratching at the surface of that potential.
But for all of this, he never spoke. Not with his voice.
He physically couldn't, and this is just a matter of anatomy. A bonobo's larynx, their voice box, is positioned too high in the throat. They don't have the fine motor control over their tongue and lips that we do.
The hardware is just wrong.
It's the wrong instrument for the job. But the sources say he tried. He did. When he was pressing the cymbals, researchers noticed he'd make these little high-pitched squeaks and grunts. They weren't random. When they analyzed the sound waves, they found the sound he made when pressing banana was consistent. The sound for grapes was consistent.
He's trying to say the words.
He was trying to mimic the acoustic shape of the words. To our ears, it just sounded like noise, but the intent was clearly there. He was trying to force his body to do what his mind wanted. It's kind of heartbreaking, really. A mind that's ready to speak, trapped in a body that won't cooperate.
So we have Kanzi the linguist, but he was also Kanzi the craftsman. This part of the story, it takes us out of the clean lab and into the dirt. The Stone Age experiments.
This is the work of 2 archaeologists, Kathy Schick and Nicholas Toth. Their whole world is Oldowan tools.
The very first stone tools our ancestors, like Homo habilis, made about 2.6 million years ago.
And these are basically just sharp flakes knocked off a bigger rock.
Sounds simple.
It sounds simple, but it's really not. You have to understand fracture mechanics. You have to hold the core rock just right and hit it with a hammerstone at an angle of less than 90 degrees.
If you hit it flat, you just smash the rock.
Right. You have to hit it with this glancing high-velocity blow to shear off a usable flake. It takes planning. You have to see the tool inside the rock before you even start.
So Schick and Toth wanted to know, could a bonobo do this?
Exactly. So they showed Kanzi, they demonstrated the process. Hit rock, get sharp flake, use flake to cut this rope, get the food that's in the box.
The classic motivator, food in a box.
Works every time. And Kanzi got the objective immediately. He knew he needed a sharp edge. But, and this is so classic Kanzi, he struggled with the human method. His hands and wrists just aren't built the same way. He couldn't get the right kind of snap.
Oh, he improvised.
He reinvented the process. Instead of holding 2 rocks and hitting them together, he picked up the core rock, stood up, and just hurled it with all his might against the concrete floor.
The gravity method.
He developed his own throwing technique. And it worked. The rock shattered and created these razor-sharp flakes. He'd pick one up, cut the rope, and get the food.
I love this because it shows he wasn't just mimicking them, He wasn't just aping the motion, he understood the physics.
Yes.
He's thinking, I need a high-impact force to break this rock. I can't do it with my wrist, but I can do it with the floor. That's engineering.
It's pure engineering. He optimized the process for his own body. He did eventually learn the handheld method, but his flakes are always a little different from early human ones. Still, the end result was the same. He had entered the Stone Age.
So we have a Stone Age ape. But then in the last couple of years of his life, we get this completely bizarre pivot, Kanzi the gamer.
This feels like it's straight out of science fiction. In 2023, 2024, he starts playing a modified version of Minecraft.
I saw those videos. There's a YouTuber, Krista Cow, who documented it. It's surreal. You're just watching this elderly bonobo staring at a screen, navigating a 3D world.
The spatial reasoning there is just immense. I mean, think about it. In the real world, to go forward, you walk forward. In a game, you have to map forward to a specific finger movement on a flat 2D screen. That's a layer of abstraction that a lot of humans struggle with.
And he wasn't just walking into walls.
Not at all. In the videos, you see him and his nephew, Teiko, playing together. They navigate a maze, they find the goal, they even defeat a boss, which was basically just triggering a mechanism to win the level.
It's incredible. So he mastered the physical world with stone tools and the digital world with Minecraft. Which brings us to the final frontier, and I think maybe the most profound one, the social world. Understanding the mind of another being.
Theory of mind. The holy grail of cognitive science.
Can you just define that for us?
Sure. Theory of mind is the basic understanding that I have a mind, but you have a mind too. And your mind contains different information than mine does.
So if I hide a candy bar in a drawer while you're out of the room, I know it's in the drawer, but I also know that you still think it's on the table where you last saw it.
Precisely. That's a false belief task. Human kids usually get this around age 4 or 5. Before that, they think everyone knows what they know.
And for decades, this was seen as the big dividing line. Apes might be smart, but they're basically solipsistic. They can't model someone else's ignorance.
Until February 2025. That study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences from the Johns Hopkins researchers. They worked with Kanzi, Teiko, and another bonobo, Yoda.
The hidden grape study.
Yep. The setup is a classic shell game. There are some cups, and a grape is hidden under one of them.
Okay.
But the key variable was the human researcher. In the first scenario, the human is in the room and watches the grape get hidden. The human knows where it is.
Right.
Then the human asks the ape, where is the grape? And in that case, Kanzi and the others would hesitate. They often wouldn't even point.
Why not?
The interpretation is they're thinking, you saw where it went, you know where it is, why are you asking me this stupid question?
So the hesitation is actually a sign of higher intelligence. He's annoyed.
He's annoyed. But then scenario B, the human leaves the room while the grape is hidden. The human is completely ignorant of where it is.
So the ape knows that the human has a false belief, or at least a lack of knowledge.
Right. The human comes back, looks all confused, and asks, where is the grape? And in that case, immediately, Kanzi and the others pointed right to the correct cup.
So they were only helpful when they understood the human needed help.
That's the smoking gun. They were tracking the human's mental state. They were holding two conflicting models of the world in their head at the same time. I know the grape is under cup 1, and this human has no idea where the grape is.
That's the foundation of empathy.
It's the foundation of all complex social life. Teaching, deception, cooperation. You can't do any of it unless you understand that other beings have a different perspective. And Kanzi proved bonobos have it.
It's just amazing that this study was published literally weeks before he died. It's like this final definitive piece of evidence for his personhood.
It really is. It cements the whole legacy. He wasn't just a mimic, he was a thinker.
I want to touch on his personality for a minute before we wrap up, because the data can make him sound like a furry computer. But people described him, especially in his later years, as an aging patriarch.
Yeah, balding, a bit of a belly, these deep-set, very soulful eyes. He had a real gravitas and this incredible emotional intelligence.
The story about the Maori haka is the perfect example.
Yeah, this was from a journalist, Paul Raphael. He visited Kanzi and, for some reason, decided to perform a haka, the Maori war dance.
Which involves a lot of shouting, chest thumping. It's a very aggressive display.
To any other primate, that is a direct threat, a declaration of war. And the other bonobos in the enclosure, they totally panicked. Screaming, banging on the glass. They thought they were being attacked.
But not Kanzi.
Kanzi just stood there, calm, watching. He didn't flinch. And when the journalist finished, Kanzi turned to Sue Savage Rumbaugh and communicated that the guy should go into the back room and do it again, just for him.
He wanted a private encore.
He understood two incredibly complex things at once. First, he got performance. He knew the man wasn't actually angry, he was just acting. Second, he knew that the others didn't get it. He realized his family was terrified, and he thought, okay, let's move this loud, scary performance somewhere else so they can calm down and I can keep watching.
That's leadership. It's conflict resolution.
It's incredibly sophisticated social management. He was protecting the emotional state of his group while satisfying his own intellectual curiosity.
And he also just loved toasting marshmallows.
He did, which brings it all back to Quest for Fire. On outings, he could gather wood, snap the twigs to the right size, carefully strike a match, which takes amazing fine motor control, light a fire, and toast a marshmallow on a stick.
He wasn't afraid of the fire.
No. Most animals are terrified of fire. Kanzi controlled it. He used it as a tool, again, just shattering that line we thought existed.
So he leaves us in March 2025.
Yeah.
And there was a memorial service I read. Over 150 people showed up.
Yeah. Charity Nebbe from Iowa Public Radio spoke, and she called him an ambassador for his species.
That feels like exactly the right word. An ambassador implies two nations meeting.
For a long time, we refused to even acknowledge their nation existed. We treated them like objects, like biological machines. Kanzi forced us to open diplomatic relations.
He showed us that the language barrier isn't a solid wall. It's more like a thick fog. And if you have enough patience and you create the right environment, you can actually walk through it.
The psychologist Heidi Lin called it a semi-capacity for language. I like that term. It's a spectrum, where at one end, maybe a rock is at the other. Kanzi proved that apes are just so much closer to our end of the spectrum than we ever wanted to admit.
It just makes you wonder about the future now. Teiko, his great-nephew, he's showing all the same promise.
Hiko is the heir apparent. He's already acing the theory of mind tests. He's playing the video games. The big question is, now that we know they can learn this way, how far can they go?
Right.
If you raise a whole generation of bonobos in this kind of immersive, language-rich culture, what will Kanzi's great-grandchildren be able to tell us?
Maybe they'll finally explain the appeal of marshmallows.
Or maybe they'll ask us why we're destroying the forests they came from.
That is a very sobering thought.
Mm-hmm.
If we give them a voice, we have to be ready to hear what they have to say. And it might not always be something we want to hear.
Indeed.
I think as we close out, the final thought for you listening is this. The next time you look at an animal, whether it's your dog or a crow on a fence, just don't assume the lights are off. Kanzi proved there's a complex, emotional, calculating mind looking back at you.
The lights are definitely on.
If you want to see it for yourself, go online. Look up the videos of Kanzi playing Minecraft or using the lexigram. Look into his eyes. You won't see an animal. You'll see a cousin.
A cousin we'll miss very much.
Rest in peace, Kanzi. And thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.